Listen to part of a lecture in a physiology class.
Lou Gehrig is one of those few unfortunate humans who have a disease named after them. Gehrig was a famous baseball player for the New York Yankees in the 1920s and 1930s. As a matter of fact, he was one of the greatest men ever to play the game. Sadly, Gehrig became ill in 1939 and was diagnosed with ALS. He retired from the game and 2 years later died from the disease. Just so you know, ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, but it's commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a disease that affects the body's nervous system by preventing messages from the brain from reaching the muscles throughout the body. Most patients who suffer from it die within 5 years of getting the disease.
But I thought that Stephen Hawking has ALS, yet he's lived for almost 40 years with the disease. How's that possible?
True enough, Dr. Hawking, in case you don't know, is a famous British astrophysicist known for his research on the universe. He's also arguably the world's most famous ALS patient and has managed to survive for around 40 years with the disease. However, he's confined to a wheelchair, has severe mobility problems, and is fully dependent upon care from others for his most basic needs. Nevertheless, he's still a rare example of a long-term ALS patient. One of the tragedies of ALS is that as the muscles deteriorate, the brain and the higher cognitive functions still operate at normal capacity. The sufferer's senses of sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell all remain unaffected. So the person fully recognizes that his or her bodily functions are collapsing. As for the signs of the disease, the initial symptoms are tingling and numbness in the extremities, a lack of strength, the unexpected dropping of things, and the occurrence of small accidents such as tripping or falling down. As the disease becomes more pronounced, the person becomes unable to walk and cannot make use of his or her arms. In the final stages, the sufferer loses all mobility in his or her body. Eventually, the individual becomes unable to speak and might not even be able to blink. How sad that must be. At some point near the end, the lungs cease functioning and the patient can only survive by being put on a respirator. Should this not happen, death quickly ensues.
But what causes ALS? I've never heard anyone talk about that before.
It's a result of the motor neurons dying, and as I said, this prevents the brain from sending messages to the muscles. It's as simple as that. ALS typically occurs in people ages 40 to 70, but can of course strike both older and younger people. Fortunately, it's fairly uncommon, as around, I believe about 5,000 or so Americans get it every year. There are also two types, sporadic ALS and familial ALS. Sporadic ALS can strike anyone, anywhere, and at any time. It's a more common type. Familial ALS, however, is inherited, but it's quite rare as it's seen in around 5 to 10% of patients. While there's no known cure for ALS, doctors are currently working on finding one. Recent research has identified a gene responsible for a small percentage of familial ALS. This discovery has, fortunately, led to a renewed interest in research on ALS. Also, researchers have some ideas about how ALS kills motor neurons. There are 4 possibilities. First, nearby cells called glial cells may produce toxins that can damage the motor neurons. Second, a neurotransmitter called glutamate, which is a substance that allows the brain to send and receive messages, may be produced in excessive quantities, which can lead to the death of cells. Third, in the motor neuron cells themselves, a breakdown in the protein that releases waste products can lead to a buildup of toxins that kills the cells. Finally, problems can occur in the axon. That's AXON, by the way. The axon is the long nerve that extends from the brain down the spinal cord and into the body. An accumulation of proteins called neurofilaments can occur. This strangles the flow of nutrients along the axon, and thus it prevents messages from reaching the muscles. Despite the ongoing intensive research and these recent discoveries, the cause or causes of ALS is unknown. Why it strikes one person and not another remains it remains a mystery. There are some thoughts on the matter, though. Some theorize that it's caused by a problem in the immune system. Others say it's a result of toxic substances, chemical imbalances in the body, or even a poor diet. In short, no one really knows. There is, however, hope for ALS sufferers. Some researchers believe that stem cells may prove useful. Experiments with mice have shown that stem cells can actually single out the damaged neurons, and they have then gone and replaced those very neurons. That's quite promising, but a lot more work remains to be done before a cure can be found.
40. What is the main topic of the lecture? 41. Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
It's a disease that affects the body's nervous system by preventing messages from the brain from reaching the muscles throughout the body. Most patients who suffer from it die within 5 years of getting the disease.
But I thought that Stephen Hawking has ALS, yet he's lived for almost 40 years with the disease. How's that possible?
What is the purpose of the student's response?
But I thought that Stephen Hawking has ALS, yet he's lived for almost 40 years with the disease. How's that possible?
42. What is the professor's attitude toward research on ALS? 43. How is the discussion organized? 44. Based on the information in the lecture, do the following sentences refer to aspects of ALS that are known or unknown? Place a check mark in the correct box. 45. What can be inferred about Stephen Hawking? Listen to part of